Globally, over 45% of IELTS test takers are stuck between Band 6.0 and 7.5. In this video, you will hear a Band 8.0 response and a detailed analysis. Having guided countless learners to Band 7+, I have learned how examiners think and what they truly reward in the speaking test. Let's start. Part 1. Introduction and Interview. Good morning. My name is Peter Stan.
Good morning. My name is Sophia Ray. My relatives and work colleagues call me Sophia, so just call me Sophia.
Where do you live?
I live in Singapore in a district called Bishan, which is fairly central and well connected to the rest of the city.
How long have you lived there?
About 5 years now. I moved there when I started university, and I've stayed on even after graduating because I'm quite attached to the area.
Are there more older people or young people in your area?
It's actually quite a balanced mix, which I find quite appealing. There are plenty of young families and students because of the proximity to schools and universities. But you also see a substantial elderly population who've lived there for decades.
Do you like living in a neighborhood with a mix of age groups?
Very much so. It creates a more vibrant, grounded community rather than feeling like everyone's just passing through. The older residents give the area a sense of continuity and memory, while younger people bring energy and change. It feels more like a real neighborhood than a dormitory.
Do you like chocolate?
I do, though I'm quite selective about it. I've developed a bit of a preference for dark chocolate with high cocoa content. The bitter, complex flavors appeal to me more than overly sweet varieties.
How often do you eat chocolate?
Maybe 2 or 3 times a week, usually as an afternoon pick-me-up when I need a mental break. I try not to overindulge, but I definitely keep a stash in my desk drawer.
Do you usually give chocolate as a gift?
Occasionally, though, I tend to choose more artisanal or specialty chocolates when I do. Generic boxes feel a bit impersonal, so I'll seek out interesting flavors or locally made varieties if I'm giving it as a gift.
Have you ever received chocolate as a present?
Quite often, actually. Friends know I appreciate good chocolate, so I frequently receive it for birthdays or when people return from travels abroad. I have accumulated quite a collection of interesting brands from different countries.
On what occasions do people gift chocolate in your country?
It's become fairly ubiquitous. Valentine's Day is probably the most obvious, but people also give it during Chinese New Year, as thank you gifts, or as souvenirs when returning from overseas. It's become a sort of safe, universally appreciated gesture.
Part 2, Cue card. Now I am going to give you a topic. You will have to talk about the topic for 1 to 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes to help you if you wish. Here is your cue card. Describe a person you studied with and got along well with. You should say who the person is, where and what you studied together, what kind of relationship you had, and explain why you got along well with this person. 1 minute for preparation is over. Please begin when you are ready.
I'd like to talk about my friend Marcus, with whom I studied with during my undergraduate degree in architecture, and who became one of the most influential people in shaping how I approach creative work. We met during our first year at the National University of Singapore, thrown together somewhat randomly as project partners for a design studio course. We spent the next 3 years collaborating on everything from technical drawing assignments to conceptual design projects, often working late into the night in the studio with drafting papers scattered everywhere and perpetually cold coffee. What made our relationship special was this complementary dynamic we developed. Marcus was incredibly methodical and detail-oriented, the kind of person who'd meticulously calculate structural loads and ensure every dimension was precise to the millimeter. I, on the other hand, tended toward big picture thinking and conceptual exploration, sometimes at the expense of practical considerations. Rather than clashing, these differences became our strength. The reason we got along so well was partly temperamental compatibility. We both had this self-deprecating sense of humor that sustained us through stressful critique sessions. But more fundamentally, We shared similar values about what architecture should achieve. We both believed buildings should serve communities rather than egos, that thoughtful design could address social inequalities, and that sustainability wasn't optional but essential. I think what really cemented our friendship was the mutual respect that went beyond just appreciating each other's skills. Marcus genuinely listened when I proposed ideas that seemed impractical, finding ways to ground them in reality rather than dismissing them. Similarly, I learned to appreciate the elegance in his technical solutions, understanding that constraints could actually enhance creativity rather than limit it. We pushed each other intellectually without it becoming competitive or toxic. When one of us received criticism during presentations, the other would offer an honest perspective, acknowledging valid points while defending the underlying thinking. This created a safe space for risk taking and experimentation. Even now, years after graduation, we still consult each other on projects. That foundation we built, trust, complementary skills, shared values, has proven remarkably durable.
Part 3. Discussion. Abstract topics. Do you think it is important for young children to learn how to interact with others? Why?
Absolutely critical. Social interaction forms the foundation for virtually every aspect of functioning in society, from collaborative problem solving to emotional regulation. Children who develop these skills early tend to navigate conflicts more constructively and build healthier relationships throughout life. Beyond practical benefits, learning to interact with diverse personalities cultivates empathy and perspective taking, which are arguably more valuable than many academic skills.
How can children develop good social skills?
Structured play is probably the most natural vehicle. Activities that require cooperation, negotiation, and turn taking teach these skills organically without feeling like instruction. Modeling matters tremendously too. Children absorb behavioral patterns from adults around them, so having caregivers who demonstrate active listening and respectful disagreement is crucial. I'd also argue that allowing children to experience manageable social friction, minor conflicts they can work through themselves, builds resilience better than constant adult intervention.
How important is it to work in a place where people get along well?
It's transformative for both productivity and well being. When psychological safety exists, when people feel comfortable expressing ideas without fear of ridicule, innovation flourishes because individuals take creative risks. Conversely, toxic dynamics drain energy that should go toward actual work into managing interpersonal tensions. That said, getting along needn't mean everyone's friends. Professional respect and functional communication often suffice.
What problems can arise if colleagues do not have good relationships at work?
The most immediate impact is communication breakdown. People withhold information, avoid collaboration, or engage in passive aggressive behavior that undermines projects. There's also the phenomenon of siloing, where teams stop coordinating because personal animosity overrides organizational goals. Perhaps most insidiously, poor relationships create stress that affects both mental health and physical well being, leading to burnout and attrition that costs organizations enormously.
Do you think a boss can be friends with employees? Why or why not?
It's delicate territory. Genuine friendship requires a certain equality and vulnerability that hierarchical relationships inherently complicate. The boss inevitably holds evaluative power that affects someone's livelihood, which fundamentally alters the dynamic. That said, warm, respectful relationships that include some personal connection can certainly exist. It's more about maintaining professional boundaries than complete emotional distance. The key is ensuring that friendliness doesn't compromise fairness or create perceptions of favoritism.
Is it better to keep personal life and work life separate?
I'd argue for integration rather than strict separation, though the degree varies individually. Completely compartmentalizing often feels inauthentic and exhausting. We're not fundamentally different people in different contexts. Bringing appropriate aspects of yourself to work can actually enhance relationships and job satisfaction. However, healthy boundaries remain essential. Not every personal struggle needs to be shared with colleagues, and maintaining some separation protects against work consuming your entire identity. It's about selective permeability rather than rigid walls.
Detailed feedback and analysis. This response demonstrates clear Band 8.0 performance through consistently advanced language use, effortless fluency, and the ability to discuss topics with intellectual depth while maintaining natural conversational quality. Let's start with fluency and coherence. This response is effortless and natural. Sophia exhibits the hallmark Band 8 characteristic of speaking without apparent effort or strain. Language flows spontaneously as if thinking aloud, with complex ideas expressed smoothly without hesitation or reconstruction. Unlike Band 7.5, where sophistication may occasionally feel deliberate, this speaker's advanced language emerges organically. Discourse management is particularly advanced. Part 1 responses demonstrate natural topic extension. When discussing the neighborhood's age mix, the speaker doesn't simply answer, but contextualizes. The older residents give the area a sense of continuity and memory, while younger people bring energy and change. This shows the ability to develop responses beyond basic requirements while maintaining relevance. Part 2 demonstrates exceptional coherence through thematic threading rather than mechanical structure. The narrative doesn't simply chronologically recount events, but weaves together descriptions of Marcus's qualities, their working relationship, and underlying values seamlessly. Transitions feel completely natural. What made our relationship special? The reason we got along. I think what really cemented our friendship. Part 3. Responses show sophisticated argumentation with layered idea development. When discussing workplace relationships, the speaker acknowledges complexity. That said, getting along needn't mean everyone's friends. Professional respect and functional communication often suffice. This qualification demonstrates the intellectual nuance characteristic of Band 8. Secondly, lexical resource. The response is precise and idiomatic. Vocabulary demonstrates the full flexibility and precision required for Band 8, with natural idiomatic language throughout. Idiomatic expressions appear effortlessly. I'm quite attached to the area. Pick me up. Safe, universally appreciated gesture, thrown together somewhat randomly, at the expense of. Cemented our friendship. Delicate territory. Selective permeability rather than rigid walls. These aren't isolated examples but represent consistent idiomatic control. Less common lexical items serve precise communication. Substantial elderly population, ubiquitous, meticulous, temperamental compatibility, self-deprecating. Constraints could enhance creativity, psychological safety, passive-aggressive, siloing, insidiously, attrition, hierarchical relationships, perceptions of favoritism, compartmentalizing. Collocational range is exceptional, well-connected, balanced mix, sense of continuity, overindulge, artisanal chocolates, complementary dynamic, detail-oriented, big-picture thinking, mutual respect, toxic dynamics, creative risks, manageable social friction, professional boundaries, emotional distance. The speaker demonstrates advanced paraphrasing. Getting along becomes psychological safety, functional communication, warm, respectful relationships, showing lexical flexibility beyond repetition. Register control is natural, shifting between conversational informality, I try not to overindulge, perpetually cold coffee, and academic sophistication, cultivates empathy and perspective-taking. Hierarchical relationships inherently complicate, without inconsistency. Lastly, grammatical range and accuracy, advanced control. Sophia demonstrates full grammatical flexibility with structures that enhance, rather than merely serve communication. Complex sentences integrate multiple clauses effortlessly. Rather than clashing, These differences became our strength. Contrastive structure with ellipsis. Children who develop these skills early tend to navigate conflicts more constructively and build healthier relationships throughout life. Key strengths. Original thinking. The speaker provides unexpected perspectives that elevate responses beyond predictable answers. Describing the neighborhood as having continuity and memory versus energy and change shows original articulation. Discussing how constraints could actually enhance creativity in Part 2 demonstrates sophisticated understanding. Intellectual engagement. Part 3 responses show genuine critical thinking rather than rehearsed opinions. The discussion of workplace friendships acknowledges competing considerations and synthesizes them into nuanced positions, characteristic of Band 8 analytical depth. Natural authentication. Personal details create biographical coherence. Studying architecture at NUS, living in Bishan, preferring dark chocolate, suggesting genuine experience rather than fabrication. This authenticity, combined with linguistic sophistication, creates convincing Band 8 performance. Sophisticated qualification. The speaker naturally acknowledges complexity without undermining positions. That said, however, it's more about than showing intellectual humility and nuanced thinking that distinguishes Band 8 from lower bands. This performance would confidently achieve Band 8.0, demonstrating the effortless fluency, sophisticated lexical resource, advanced grammatical control, and intellectual depth expected at this level while maintaining natural, spontaneous delivery essential to authentic speaking assessment at the highest bands.